No beer.
Mr. Speaker, our goal as the official opposition and future government is to boost Canadians' purchasing power by making the cost of food and housing more affordable, by putting criminals behind bars, the criminals that the Liberals have released, by making our borders safer and strengthening our immigration system, and by turning our country into an economically independent country.
Affordable food at home, safer streets by locking up the criminals that Liberals turned loose, secure borders by fixing the broken Liberal immigration system, and a self-reliant Canada by unlocking the power of our resources, industry, and entrepreneurs. But first among all these is that we must be able to feed our people. Conservatives believe that everyone, our families, our seniors, our workers, deserve nutritious, delicious, affordable food on their tables. Meat and potatoes night after night, not as a once-in-a-while treat. They shouldn't feel stress and anxiety as they walk down grocery aisles. In fact, they should be looking at the items that they can't wait to bring home and transform into the next delicious family meal, rather than looking at the price tag and wondering whether it will empty their bank accounts. They should have full fridges, full stomachs, and full bank accounts all at the same time. That used to be what we took for granted in Canada. But after 10 years of Liberal inflation, the cost of food is up over 40%. In fact, since this particular Prime Minister took office, promising that he could be judged by the price of food, food prices have been rising 50% faster in Canada than in the United States. The Daily Bread Food Bank says this year, Toronto alone will have 4 million visits to the food bank. That's double what it was 2 years ago, meaning worse than it was under Justin Trudeau. The average family of four is expected to spend almost $17,000 on food this year. That's up well over $800 over the previous year. This at a time when wages are flat and joblessness is skyrocketing. 100,000 more people lost their jobs this summer under this Prime Minister's high-tax, low-growth policy, which has given us the slowest growth in the fastest shrinking economy in the G7, far worse than I stated it. And meanwhile, those jobless people are walking down grocery aisles seeing that beef is up 33%, canned soup 26%, grapes 24%, roasted and ground coffee 22%, beef stewing cuts up 22%. Food costs should be dropping in this country, Mr. Speaker, because the amount of fertilizer, fuel, water, and labor that goes into producing food has dropped dramatically. The average dairy cow can produce 4 times as much milk as 50 years ago, and the average acre can produce 4 times as much corn. So all of the costs of producing food are dropping, but the price of buying food is going up. What explains the difference? Well, part of that you'll have to wait for the member from Chatham-Kent Leamington, with whom I will be splitting my time, a very esteemed colleague. But part of it, I guarantee he will tell you, part of it is the cost of government, which again is the biggest cost contributor, and it has been rising under this Liberal government. This Prime Minister has 3 main grocery taxes, all of which he has been raising. First, the industrial carbon tax on fertilizer and on farm equipment. That tax increases the cost right up through the food chain, a tax that this Prime Minister intends to more than triple if, God forbid, he stays in power until 2023. Then there's the fuel standard tax. This is a 17-cent-a-litre tax that the government is imposing that will apply on diesel and on gasoline, replacing the carbon tax fuel charge that was in place up until I forced the government to remove it just a few months ago. But I warned that this government would simply bring in a new carbon tax if given the chance, and that is exactly what they are doing. That will, of course, raise the cost. This one is worse, though, because unlike the previous fuel charge, which exempted tractors, combines, and other on-farm use, this will apply. This will apply on the fuel that goes right into the combine, the seeder, the planter, the tractor, on the farm gate. So it will be even worse for food prices than the previous tax. And then there's the inflation tax itself, the most immoral, destructive tax there is, the sneakiest tax. And the inflation tax happens when the government prints money to pay its bills, ultimately bidding up the cost of everything Canadians buy. If you have an economy with 10 loaves of bread and $10, it's $1 a loaf. If you double the number of dollars to 20, but you still only have 10 loaves of bread, well, each bread purchase goes up by 100%. It doubles in price. And that is what we call the inflation tax. This Prime Minister is familiar with it because, of course, he caused the inflation and housing crisis in Great Britain, where he was a disastrous and now totally despised Bank of England governor. He will hopefully be apologizing to the British people for the economic hell he left behind in that role, but instead he's bringing that hell here to Canada. Today we learned that this Prime Minister is even more expensive than Justin Trudeau. Who would have thought it possible? The deficit for this year will be, according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, 2/3 higher than the one that Trudeau left behind. Over the next 5 years, the deficit will add up to $314 billion, more than double the deficits that Trudeau was expected to add over that period of time. In other words, he is borrowing at twice the rate of Justin Trudeau, more expensive, and of course much of that money will be printed. Already, the Bank of Canada is signaling that it is again doing away with its main mandate, which is to fight inflation. They've taken that mandate off of the main webpage, where they used to describe their mission as low and stable inflation, and they've replaced it with a grand pronouncement that they're not just any bank, they are the central bank, Mr. Speaker. What they really mean is that they're going back to printing money to pay for a Prime Minister who cannot control himself. Every dollar this Liberal Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians, in direct taxes or inflation taxes. Mr. Speaker, that member across the way, I think he's the whip. Is he the whip? Yeah. He's saying he doesn't know that the Bank of Canada had a website. Another example of a Liberal who should do a little bit more research before opening his mouth, Mr. Speaker. And he doesn't. There's a lot of things that they don't know over there, or that they don't want Canadians to know. We know that inflation is very good for Brookfield because the CEO of that company said so. He said that his company profits from inflation, so the Prime Minister will get richer as he makes Canadians poorer and hungrier through his inflation tax. Our goal on this side of the House is exactly the opposite. C'est la raison pour laquelle nous
That's why we're proposing to eliminate grocery taxes. We think we can reduce the cost of groceries by scrapping the industrial carbon tax, which is causing prices for fertilizer to go up, by eliminating the taxes on diesel and gas in order to allow farmers to produce and transport food more efficiently, and finally, by eliminating the money printing deficits, the inflation tax. By cutting all these taxes and by stopping bogus refugee claims from going forward, we can ensure that there's no financial deficit nor any nutritional deficit for Canadians who work hard. They should be able to afford food, delicious, affordable food, to bring their families together around an extraordinary quality of living. This is possible in our country. We are blessed with geographic advantages, demographic advantages, and economic advantages. We have a beautiful future ahead of us if we make the right decisions. And this should start by scrapping the grocery taxes.
Stop taxing food. Allow Canadians to have nutritious, delicious food. Make this a country where anyone who's worked hard can enjoy meat and potatoes on their table in a beautiful house that they own, on a safe street with a wonderful Canadian flag hanging off the front porch. Thank you.
Comments, questions et commentaires. The Honourable Chief Government Whip.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, Senior Political Advisor, Jenny Byrne, does she still work for Loblaws, yes or no?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, of course not. Mr. Speaker, and the answer to his question, the question really is, we have the ultimate corporate lobbyist as the Prime Minister of Canada. What is he lobbying for? Tax evasion. His investments are stashed away in offshore Caribbean bank accounts where they don't pay the taxes that Canadian pays. He wants to force Canadians to subsidize the electric car production system that profits Brookfield. He wants Canadians to pay higher inflation, which the CEO of Brookfield said would profit his company. We have a corporate lobbyist as our Prime Minister, and that's why a small group of people are getting rich, making everyone else poor.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, I would like to hear what the Leader of the Opposition continue to talk about the Prime Minister's interests in all of the things that are increasing inflation, but I think the Leader will be able to answer questions later about that. But let's go back to the issue of the day, is the cost of groceries. The Conservatives are proposing to abolish a lot of taxes, the carbon tax, with a plastic ban. But I'd like to hear what the Leader has to say about the Conservatives' plan to fight the climate crisis, because whether they agree, whether it exists or not, it is there. It has an effect on agriculture, and we'll have to deal with all these tax cuts, and as well as on the price of carbon. We're proposing to export our clean natural gas and other types of energy to replace much dirtier energy abroad. And that's the Conservative approach. But I forgot to mention another tax. That's the plastics tax that the Liberals want to impose. A tax on food by banning plastic. And this will make food go bad quicker. It will also make grocery prices skyrocket. So we want to eliminate that tax as well, to preserve food longer, and also to increase the number of jobs in the chemicals sector here in Canada. It's a big industry Canada-wide. So let's eliminate all taxes on groceries so we can have more jobs and so that Canadians can eat better and more affordably.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
I'd like to thank my colleague for his excellent speech. The Parliamentary Budget Officer's fiscal update today truly is a horror story. It is showing in the next 5 years we'll be paying over $80 billion a year for interest on the Liberal debt. That's far more than we're actually paying for health care transfers in the country. And what if my colleague could opine on his beliefs about the government spending more money on interest than helping out with health care?
Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
It's more money for bankers and less for nurses, Mr. Speaker. And I know that the Prime Minister likes that. He likes to allow bankers to benefit, people who work for banks rather than taxpayers. And that's why he has no issue doubling the deficit for the next 5 years, doubling it with respect to the deficit that was left behind by Justin Trudeau. It's hard to believe that we now have a Prime Minister who costs even more than Justin Trudeau. It was unimaginable, Mr. Speaker. And I would also add that the deficits set out by the PBO don't even include increases for the army that the Prime Minister has committed to, but it was in the platform. So these deficits are out of control. Every dollar that this Prime Minister spends comes from the pockets of Canadians who don't have this money. So we have to eliminate the deficit and the inflationary taxes of this Prime Minister.